This committee has heard a lot of arguments for victims, and people are being convinced that they're victims by the government when that's not the case. Let me cite an example. This committee had a hearing on EPA's proposed regulation of farm dust. Can anybody think of anything more ridiculous than regulating farm dust? It's ubiquitous to farms. So this committee rushed legislation to protect the farmers from EPA regulation of farm dust, even though EPA said they had no plans to regulate farm dust. And we passed a bill. You know what the bill did? It provided for repeal of regulations from open pit mining that put out particulate matter and toxic substances in the air. So that farmers were told they were victims and they were being used for a different purpose. It's not the government's fault if a utility decides it's cheaper to use natural gas than coal. That's called what we call economics. If it's cheaper to use another substance, they'll use it. Do we want to stop them from doing that? Do we want to stop the free enterprise system? We don't have the technology to remove the carbon from coal and store it. It's a technology we all should want to have. But the industry has no incentive to develop that technology because they're doing fine selling coal and using coal without that technology. That would just be an extra expense. So you have two ways you can get that technology. One is to say you've got to use it in order to achieve a certain standard, or that's the best way to achieve that standard. That's the way the environmental laws have worked in the past. As long as we allow any source of electricity to compete, as long as it does not cause unacceptable harm to health and the environment. This bill picks winners and losers. The other, EPA, would set a standard that companies that generate electricity from coal will not have a free pass on pollution. But there was another way to do it. That was the way Mr. Upton proposed in legislation. That would have put a fee on those who get electricity from coal, and that fee would have been used exclusively for research and development of the technology. That was a bill he introduced in the last Congress with Mr. Boucher, and I suggested to him that we would take up that bill and vote for it. We can't do anything else, at least do that. Never heard any other word on the subject after we proposed doing that. The Republicans in this bill, in this House, passed H.R. 910, the Upton-Inhofe bill. That would have barred EPA from reducing dangerous carbon pollution and codified science denial by overturning EPA's scientific finding that carbon pollution endangers health and welfare. It's a premise that climate change is a hoax. And since that time, early last year, this Republican House has proved to be the most anti-environmental in the history of the Congress. Republicans have voted more than 300 times on the House floor to weaken long-standing public health and environmental laws, block environmental standards, defund protections of our air, water, and public lands, oppose clean energy. They voted 47 times to block action on climate change. When they passed that Upton-Inhofe bill a year and a half ago, House Republicans argued science was uncertain, EPA was exceeding its authority. By now, everybody should understand that they were wrong on both counts. The science has been clear, and just look at all the signs of climate change occurring around us. Recent wildfires, droughts, heat waves, exactly the types of extreme weather events that scientists have been predicting for years and that this committee has been ignoring. Since that passage of the Upton-Inhofe bill, we have sent 17 letters to the chairman of this committee requesting hearings on new developments in climate science. We haven't even gotten a reply. Instead, what we have is the leadership of this committee talking about a war on coal. And if coal miners are losing their jobs, it's because of the government. Well, it's because of economics. and the unwillingness of the Republicans who control the House to figure a way out of this issue. The EPA is not overreaching. The courts have affirmed their power to regulate in this area. It's about time we try to help the people in the coal area be viable in a new economy that's coming. Otherwise, you can scare them with war, talk of war against them, but it's a dishonest approach. It doesn't help them. It stirs up the feelings of victimology by the people in these areas, and I suppose it's supposed to help Republicans in the election. But sometimes let's stop paying politics and deal with national urgent matters, and this committee has refused to do it for a year and a half.